Alright guys, you join me here today in a Civic FD2 Type R. Oh my god, this is a really special car. Let me just show you guys the car first. Look at this. It's like a brand new car in championship white. The color that pays homage to early Formula One cars that Honda competed with. Even the wheels are the body color. It's amazing. This car is immaculate. Absolutely beautiful. Let's have a look inside. Look at this fabric. It's like new. Look at the pedals. Motorsport. What I do love is the gas pedal is floor mounted, which is like BMWs or even the Porsches. Easy for heel and toe. There's a start button. As you notice, it doesn't say stop because you only use it to start. To stop it, you turn the key. Japanese cars like to beep. I mean, this interior is quite cheap. There's a lot of plastics, but it looks very focused. It's just great. I'm too lazy to open the hood. I'll show you an insert later. Look at these back seats. They look like they have never been used. Look at that. That sticker is still there. The previous owner was kind of anal about this car, and so he actually told me he did not let anyone sit in the back of this car, which I think is kind of crazy. But you know, you have a four-door car, you should use it like a family car. But he kept it well. He kept it well for the next owner, which happens to be me. And you know, I'll be using it like the way it's meant to be used. Civic Type R, man. Oh my god. I love this car. But to tell you the truth, for the longest time, I actually looked down on these cars. Not until recently. Until my friend told me how special these things are. He basically educated me on how special these cars are. You just got to ignore the fact that this is a four-door sedan. It's actually a sports car, and I'll explain why later. So off the AC. And you know it's special as soon as you clutch down, press the start button, you feel the engine. You blip the throttle. So damn light and responsive. You know what? Revving on a standstill, it reminds me of the GT3 when I first revved the engine after startup. It has this lightness to it, and immediately you know, okay, this engine, this K20A, this legendary engine, which in the FD2 is basically the version to have. It's the best version of the K20. So this engine is actually better than the one used in the Integra, the DC5 Type R. This is the final evolution of the K20, and it happens to be in a four-door car. So I'm gonna start driving now, which means I'll change to the other camera setup, and then we'll talk about how this car drives. I do have to apologize. I chose kind of the worst time of day to start filming, but I am extremely busy and this is the only time I can film. And also I have so much to say about this car, and I can't keep it in any longer. I have to talk about it. Otherwise, I'm gonna go crazy. So where do I start? Okay. Here's an update. I sold the 996. And I got this car instead. To most people, they're thinking, what the hell are you doing? Why would you sell a Porsche to get a Honda Civic? Well, to be honest, as much as I loved the 996, the Tiptronic gearbox was just... I enjoyed it when I'm driving in the twisties, but when I'm just driving on like a day-to-day commute, the car just did not feel special to me. I think I just needed a manual gearbox. And also, the engine in the C2, it, how should I say, it sounded good, but it lacked character. And then I started talking to my friend, and he was telling me that I should really look at the FD2s. And I kind of just, I blew it off. I was like, come on, man, I'm not gonna get a Civic. Those are like racer boy cars. And then he just kept sending me videos and articles to look at. And the more I looked into it, the more I thought, hang on a minute, I think the FD2 might be a little gem of a car which I have dismissed inappropriately. I should have really looked at this car, because just ignore the fact that this car has 4 doors, okay? If you ignore the fact that the car body is not that special, even though I think it's actually very good looking, but it's not unique. You see a whole bunch of FD1 Civics on the Thai roads. I'm sure when we start driving, we will see a whole bunch of them. And you cannot really stand out in this car, but that might also be a perk. Alright, so ignore the fact that this is a 4-door sedan and look at the actual history of the Type Rs, and you will learn that actually the FD2 was the last Type R to be made in Japan. If you look at best motoring videos, they actually did not take the new Type R, the Civic Type R. They think it's a change of philosophy, because those cars are not made in Japan. They were, I think, designed in the US, and it's like assembled in the UK or something like that, but it no longer has the purity of the design of the FD2. The FD2 was the very last made in Japan Type R, and it is also the very last high revving Type R concept. The newer Type R, it's turbocharged. It has the power, but in one of the best motoring videos, they actually took the FD2 and raced it with the FK3, and in a tight circuit, the FD2 actually smoked the new car. The engine, the K20A, it's, most people know it's a legendary engine, and throughout its life it got improved marginally over time. And when they designed this engine, they really thought about everything. One of the philosophies is, how do they reduce the internal friction of this engine as much as possible? And this is something you can truly feel when you drive the car. The engine, when you rev it, it's so smooth. The engine braking of this car is so minimal that you could stay on high revs and not have the car feel like it's uncomfortable. You know, for example, my E34 M5, it enjoys being in the high revs too, but when you're at the high revs, the engine braking, which probably mostly comes from internal friction, is significant. And so when you keep the car in high revs and you're driving, it can be a bit jerky. On this car, you could keep it between 4,000 to 5,000 and it still feels very smooth and relaxed. The car likes to be kept in high revs, so it just feels really special. And like I said, in the FD2, this is the final iteration of the K20A, and this is where most of the improvements have been made. The intake manifold design is different, and a whole bunch of other revisions which I don't remember off the top of my head, but it basically resulted in a 220 horsepower engine from a 2-liter high revving motorsport forged internals engine. And if that's not special to you, I don't know what is. And one more thing is, this car is not all engine. Everything else with this package is very special. So apart from the engine, we have the transmission. This transmission is great. Like, a car like this cannot exist today. A car that is high revving and extremely short gears cannot exist today. It will not pass the emissions test. It will not pass the sound test. But this car was from the, I would say, the golden age of Japanese cars, and you could really tell. The gearing on this is perfectly matched to this engine. You can exploit the power band so well, in part because of this gearbox. If this car came with an automatic transmission, it would be a turd to drive, because it would want to shift up to 6 as soon as possible, and you have no power. And when you put your foot down, because the gearing has to be so short, it will have to downshift like 4 gears, and that you cannot do that in an automatic transmission. It will just feel jerky and unnatural. It has to be a manual short gear ratio gearbox, which cannot exist in today's regulatory environment. It's just not possible. Then we have the suspension. The suspension on this car is actually quite sophisticated. The rear is fully independent, the double wishbone. The front is a McPherson strut, which is actually a downgrade from the DC2. I think the DC2 Integra had double wishbone all around. But around the track, when this car first came out in the Suzuka circuit, Best Motoring tested this car against cars that are in a different weight class, so a heavier weight class, a more powerful weight class. It beat the NSX. It also beat the Nissan GT-R. I think it was the R32, if I'm not mistaken. It beat a whole bunch of other cars. It also beat Honda's own dedicated sports car. Do you know what that is? The S2000, a rear-wheel drive sports car which has more engine displacement. The S2000 came with a 2.2 liter motor. This is a 2 liter 4-door front-wheel drive, and it beat the S2000. Not only in the Suzuka circuit, but also in the mountain roads, it overtook the S2000. That's how good the suspension on this car is. And one thing that I was really surprised by is how well it corners. When you go into a corner in this car, the car just wants to go faster, and you have the confidence to give it more gas mid-corner. In mid-corner, you can feel the grip so well, and it's so stable that you could adjust while you're cornering, even if it's a high G corner. You have great adjustability during mid-corner, which is very difficult to do. It's just an amazing car. Yeah. Okay, I don't want to talk too much. Let's go into driving. All right. First gear, and we go. This is a stock clutch, super easy. You could drive this in traffic, no problem. It's very soft, very predictable. The brakes on this car is Brembo brakes, just like the Evo. The seats, even though they say Type R, it's actually, I think they are Recaros. And so my first impression of this car when I first sat in it was, hey, it's very similar to the Evo. It feels like the Evo. The brakes, I think it's pretty much the same brakes as the Evo. The seats, Recaros, just like the Evo. But the driving position, I would say, is better than the Evo, even though I think the seat can be a bit lower, but it's something that you get used to after the first few minutes of driving. It's high, but you know, this is also a 4-door car. It's not a dedicated sports car chassis. So what can you say? The E92 M3 is the same. Look, gearing is so short. Third gear. I can do fourth gear here. That's not possible in my other cars. I love how short these gears are. It's amazing. It's stiff, alright. This car is quite stiff. And the rear is very stiff. But they designed the rear to be stiff so that when you're on track, the back end can be more playful. And that will remove the amount of understeer coming from this car, which this car has almost no understeer unless you're driving in the rain, which I did last night. It was kind of scary. So I'm going, and this is third. It's already at 5,000 revs at 80 kilometers per hour. Crazy. Fourth. And then so between 2,000 and 3,000, this engine is very relaxed. You don't hear much. It's not very verbal. But if you downshift to fourth, at 3,000 it starts to come alive. It makes a really distinctive buzzing noise. As you move up the rev range of this engine, it makes different sounds. And that is actually one of the qualities of a good engine, is that it should sound different throughout the rev range. So give you different audio cues so you can hear what rev range the engine is in instead of having to look down. And look at how simple this dashboard is. All you see is the speedo, the amount of fuel you have, and this VTEC thing, which you will see later. There's a VTEC light. So when VTEC is engaged, when the solenoid engages, there will be a light that turns on. And then there's also a shift light which tells you when to shift. And then right in the middle, you have the giant rev counter. And that's about it. And a water temp. This car wants you to focus on driving. It doesn't want you to even think about oil temp or oil pressure. It's taken care of. The car will take care of that for you. They designed it to be able to handle hard driving. So you don't need to worry about it. All you need to think about is how much fuel you have, how fast you're going, and what revs the engine are going. That's it. So easy to rev match. You see the lights? VTEC lights. So grippy, this car. And you can hear it all the way. I can't go to red line. Heel toe is so easy in this car. The engine just feels so light. You blip it a tiny bit and it'll go boom with minimal rev hang. It just feels unburdened. When they designed this engine, they even looked at how to reduce friction in the oil pump. It's crazy. The K20 engine was built outside of the factory. I think it was the Type R division, and all of the internals are balanced, all built by hand. It feels like a very special car. And what I really love about it is, from the outside, no one will know. No one will know. But when you're in the car, it looks special from the inside. You have all this red fabric interior, which, you know, just looks cool. And then when you're going, when you just touch the throttle pedal, you know this car means business. super powerful? Not really. It lacks torque, but if you know how to stay on its power band, it's fast. It's actually really fast. And this car has no traction control, only ABS. It's just you in the car, nothing in between. The steering on this is power assisted. It's not electric. Which is interesting because the S2000 had electric steering, but not this car. Look at that. Oh, some understeer. The limited slip pulling it out of the corner. Oh, so great. Everything in this car is just, everything is a standout. It's such a great, well-engineered car. I'm kind of wordless, speechless. It's so easy to shift. Okay, the shifter, because it's cable actuated, you don't get much feel. I like it when you can feel the engine on the shifter. When you feel a bit of buzziness, you can feel the engine. But this is a completely numb shifter. But that is a design limitation because cable operated shifters don't usually transmit vibrations. But this shifter is so precise and such a joy to use. I'm not really complaining about the feel or the lack of feel. It's really hard to miss a shift in this. People say Type R shifters are one of the best. I totally agree. In terms of precision, they are not wrong. Turning radius is, of course, much better than the Evo. There's not enough torque to really give it torque steer. And so mid-corner, this car actually feels like a rear-wheel drive. It has the balance of a good rear-wheel drive car. Chuck it into this corner, no problem, no drama. Chuck it, no problem. Don't even need to brake here. So easy to drive. I don't think I've ever cornered that quickly before on that corner. This car has so much grip. It's insane. It has more grip than the Evo, I must say. The composure mid-corner is just almost like nothing I've ever experienced. I feel like it has more cornering grip than the GR Yaris. I might have to put that to the test. I thought the standout of this car would be the engine, but actually it's the way that it corners that I'm truly in love with. The engine is absolutely crazy. It's amazing, but it's the chassis that really takes me. Oh, but the engine is still so good. Look at this. And between 8,000 to 8,005 or even 9,000, the engine sounds like it's gonna blow up. It's crazy. But because it's a K20, you know it'll just keep turning. No drama. And when I'm driving this car, I just want to be fast all the time. Fast. And be an asshole. because it's so easy. It's so easy to drive fast in this car. The steering is electric. Good. Yesterday I drove my friend's 992 GT3, and of course that car is magical. I absolutely fell in love with it, and I was so scared that when I came back I would be bored to drive this car. But as soon as I started it, as soon as I blipped the throttle, as soon as I turned the wheel, I knew that my love for this car is still very strong. I feel like this car is essentially the GT3 of front-wheel drive cars. It uses the same design philosophy. The engine is uncompromised, made for high revving power. The gearbox, uncompromised, made to match the engine as much as possible. The body of the car has been stripped down to save weight. This car weighs 1,250 kilos, if I'm not mistaken, which for today is extremely light, especially if you're talking about a four-door car. The new M4s are almost two-ton beasts, you know? The noise, the interaction with the car, you feel everything, just like a GT3. But it's just refined enough to be a road car. It's not punishing. Look at that. Playful. You can get the tail to come out if you upset the balance a bit when you go into the corner, kind of like a Scandinavian flick. And the steering is very communicative. You know exactly what's going on. There's not a moment where you feel like, uh-oh. Complete confidence. The Japanese journalists, when they drove this car when it came out, they called it a race car for the streets. Like, honestly, they were calling it that. It's a bit crazy considering it's a four-door car. But tell me that does not sound like a race car. Oh, these roads are fucking horrible. When you calm down, relax, and drive it like a commute car, it allows you to do that. You shift early. It's a good thing it has 6 gears instead of 5. If it has 5 gears, then it'll be truly way too short. On the highway, when you're doing, let's say 120, 130 kilometers per hour in 6th gear, you'll be at around 4,000 revs, which in other cars you would say that's way too high because the NVH of the engine would be pretty crazy. But at 4,000, this engine is very smooth. It's very happy to do 4,000 for an extended amount of time. It's one of the most well-balanced 4-cylinder engines there is. Brakes are excellent, so easy to modulate. If there's one thing that I don't like about this car, it would have to be maybe, I feel like the car can be a bit jerky on the throttle pedal. You have to be very smooth with your inputs, otherwise it can jerk back and forth quite easily. But that is a trade-off of having a extremely sensitive gas pedal, which I think is worth it. You just need to be more precise with your toe movements when you press on the gas. I think this car aged really well. I think time has been very kind to it. It still looks new today. And the styling is not offensive at all, unlike the new Civic Type R. That's just, it's cool, but it can be offensive to a lot of people. This car is super understated. Kind of reminds me of the 996 GT3. It's a very understated design, and that's one of my favorite 911s, and this is similar in that sense. I absolutely love this car. I told my friends that this might actually slowly become creeping towards my all-time favorite car. For the longest time it was the 205 GTI, but this car is like, it's very different. I cannot compare them. They're from a different era, but I feel like this car is more suited to me than the 205. Okay, since we are stuck in this killer traffic, which this car can handle no problem, but I cannot, I think I will stop filming soon. Oh, okay. That's why. That is the cause of the traffic. This truck is going in, got stuck. I don't know what's going on. What a place to stop. What the hell? Oh, when I first drove this car, I thought it needed more power, but it's strange. It's one of those things, the more I drive it, the more I feel like actually the power is adequate. And that to me is a sign of a good car. Some cars, the more you drive it, the more you feel like it needs more power. And that is a sign of a car that you should not keep, because it just means the car is boring and you feel like you need to compensate the boringness with more power. This car is the opposite. I thought it needed more power, but the more I discover its abilities, the more I start to realize, actually, I don't need more power. I'm happy with this. This car is perfect the way that it is. It's not the most exotic sounding car. It can be a bit too racer-ish, but it's full of character. You cannot deny that. It's buzzy and it's fizzy. You feel the engine all throughout the chassis. You feel it on the steering wheel. It's great. These short gears might actually be another standout of this car, because I enjoy shifting in this car so much. It's so pleasurable. Every time you shift, it's like a dopamine hit. And that's one thing my 996 could not offer me, and one of the reasons why I sold it. It's not rewarding to toggle the thing, and it's not rewarding to rev it out. This car is rewarding to shift, damn rewarding to rev it out, and goddamn rewarding to corner it and hear the tires sing. And when you need it to do the boring stuff, it doesn't wear you out. That is kind of the qualities of what a good car should have. Not many cars can fulfill all of these requirements. If I want to, I can go to 4th. I'm in 4th now. And then downshift, and then downshift to 2nd. I'm busy shifting in this little road. I'm having fun driving slow in a fast car. It's great. Unlike the M5, I feel like the M5, the E34 M5, which I have parked over there, that car is, the engine is stealing the show. Everything else around it is kind of, I don't know, like just living in the shadow of the engine. The chassis, so. Brakes, not good. The gearbox, the gears are way too long. Not enough gears. This car, everything is perfectly matched, perfectly balanced. And because it's a Japanese car, because it's a Honda, it's reliable too. What more could you ask for? And for that reason, I deem this car probably, I don't want to call it my favorite car, but let's just say my top 3 at the moment, okay? And with that, thanks for watching, and have a good one. Bye, guys. You gotta stop it from here. Yeah, bye, guys. Thanks.